You're creating content, having your own special vocabulary for your audience, using relatable terms that when they hear it, their senses kind of tingle, like Spider-Man, like, oh, wait a minute. She said that's one of the words from my industry. That's one of the words from my cause. So make sure that you really map it out and be intentional if you're creating content on where you put those words. Welcome back to Land the Talk. I am your host, Robin Nathaniel. No guest today. We're doing another solo episode, but I did want to point out that we only have 6 episodes left before the end of the season. It's been an amazing ride. We've had some really interesting guests on and also had some fun with our solo episodes. I really have enjoyed the teaching part of doing the solo episode, so I have another presentation for you. Today, we're gonna really dig into your digital brand, how you're gonna approach social media and just your overall presence online. And I wanna make sure you get value, so I laid out a presentation for you. If you are listening to the audio version of this episode, don't worry, I will walk through it with you as well. Let's go ahead and dig right in. So today's episode is called Digital Reputation, Branding, and Social Media for Nonprofits. And this is part 1 of this series. I'm not sure if we're gonna do 3 episodes or 2, but I definitely wanna spread out the content a little bit because it's actually pretty heavy. The first version of this, I had about, I wanna say like 26 slides or something like that. It was very long, and I had to kind of trim it down and put it into sections, you know what I mean? So this is section 1, part 1. So really what I want to do is have you walk away from this episode with actionable tips for you to bring to your team, for you to actually implement if you're running a small nonprofit. But if you have a team, this is something you can share with your team and they can put it into practice immediately. Honestly, it's a conversation that we don't see happen enough in the nonprofit or the mission-driven space. And I'm just excited to bring it to the table for you. And if it's the first time you're hearing this kind of language around your digital presence, I hope that we're gonna bring you some value. So, first thing we wanna dig into is establishing your authentic brand voice. Now make sure you stick around to the end because I'm going to show you how you can grab yourself a free resource that sums this all up in ebook form. So we have a free resource that we're going to share with you at the end of the episode, so please stick around. So, establishing your authentic brand voice. Your brand voice is the heartbeat of your business. It's what sets you apart and resonates with your target audience. So here's how you can develop and implement your unique brand voice. Step 1, identify your core values and attributes. To do that, you can brainstorm, create a list of your business's core values and non-negotiable principles. If you're a solopreneur or if you're a founder of a small nonprofit or mission-driven company, this is something you could do on your own. But if you have a team, I would definitely bring it to the table. The next thing you want to do in step 1 is define how you want customers or donors, supporters to perceive your brand. Also, you want to identify what makes your brand and what makes your approach unique in the industry. What makes your brand unique and what makes you stand out? What's your superpower? What separates you from the rest of your competitors or even your partners if you're in a space where you're partnering with folks? Here's an exercise for you. Create a table listing your core values and corresponding brand voice characteristics. You can break it down like this. For my people at home, think about it like 2 columns. One column you have core values, and the second column you have brand voice characteristics. So some examples, a core value could be sustainability, innovation, luxury, health, fitness. Brand voice characteristics will be something like this example: forward-thinking, tech-savvy. Another brand voice characteristic: eco-conscious, socially responsible. And the next brand voice characteristic could be something like refined and sophisticated. I think this is something that gets ignored, where we really assume that our brand is what it is naturally, when in fact you have the ability to really build the world for your supporters, the people you serve, your stakeholders, right on down the line. So for me, this is crucial to make sure you build a strong online brand and also, refine your digital presence. So the second step in this process of establishing your authentic brand voice, I want you to translate your values into the voice. So develop a specific tone, a style, a vocabulary aligned with your brand's personality. You can consider elements such as tone, like let's say serious or playful, a style like short, punchy, or descriptive, and your vocabulary. Ensure consistency across all platforms and communications. So especially if you guys are out there, especially if you're creating content, right? So if you're creating content, having your own special vocabulary for your audience, using relatable terms that when they hear it, their senses kind of tingle, like Spider-Man, like, oh, wait a minute. She said that's one of the words from my industry. That's one of the words from my cause. So make sure that you really map it out and be intentional if you're creating content on where you put those words. So I just wanted to make sure I added that piece there. So step 3, you already went through these steps of translating your values into voice and identifying your core values and attributes. Next up, you want to step out from the crowd. This is my favorite part. First step, be bold, take a stand on relevant industry issues. Second, share your business journey. This is something especially for founders that you could really, really leverage. Build in public, like talk about the struggles that you're experiencing as a nonprofit leader or as a mission-driven, purpose-driven professional. Whatever lane you're in, it's okay to publicly talk about the good, the bad, the ugly, the wins and the losses. People relate to that stuff. You'd be surprised. People might be in a similar position as you or be a step or two behind you in the journey, and they might be watching you, looking at you for influence and for knowledge. So keep that in mind. Use humor if it fits your brand's personality. This is something that's huge. And I think some of the brands that you don't expect it from, that's when it hits the hardest. And last, create a unique lexicon of brand-specific terms or phrases. This is kind of a play on part 2 when you talk about your vocabulary. You really want to think this through. This is something for our actual NBA channel, my Believe in Fantasy Basketball NBA channel, where we have a list of our terms that we use constantly. I have them up on the wall, and sometimes I even have to pick, there's little slang terms and relatable terms for NBA that we use. You could do the same thing for any business. Just kind of map them out and just make sure in your communication with your clients, with your advocates, with your major donors, that you're continuing to have those words and those terms pop up in the conversation. And number 4, what you want to do is refine your brand messaging. Know your audience pain points, desires, and values. Huge, huge. Focus on benefits rather than just the features. Use power words that evoke emotion and drive action. Be concise and incorporate storytelling. We recently had, not recently, we had a bunch of different storytellers on the show, but I think the biggest takeaway for me in having some of these amazing storytellers on our show is realizing that you can dig deep to pull out your own story, or you can tell people's stories. You can look at public figures. You can look at historical figures. You could do case studies on your clients, donors, supporters, the people you serve. This is a huge opportunity, something I'm doing constantly with my clients, and I encourage you to do the same. Last thing, include clear call to actions in your messaging. Now, I would say this, if you are trying to get donations, for example, like I wouldn't make every post have the call to action, please donate here and leave a link. Depending on what platform you're operating on, if it's social media, sometimes leaving a link could actually work against you. So you want to be really mindful of that, making sure you're not overdoing it when it comes to the amount of links to direct people off of the platform that you're operating on. So think about it like this. There are different types of calls to action. What I would recommend for you is making sure that you have a balance. So one call to action could be simply to get people to respond in the comments about the topic that you're talking about, or get them to take some type of an action in terms of writing in the comments, like whatever it is. Hey, give me an emoji if you agree or disagree. You could also encourage one-word answers. That's something that is kind of low-hanging fruit, like give them a yes or no question. Oftentimes with comments in a digital space, on social media, etc., we overcomplicate the call to action. Hey, tell me about a time when you blank. And now it's like, I got to think about writing a daggone story. I'm like, well, when did it happen? What year was it? Who was the people? I'll forget it. I won't leave a comment. Where if you're okay with testing it, I would even encourage them, hey, what's your favorite, pizza topping? Pepperoni or mushrooms. And it doesn't have to be pizza, obviously, but think about something in your space, in your niche, that's very simple for people to respond to. Give them a 2-option multiple choice deal, or you could ask them a yes or no question. Now, step 5, implement your brand's voice across digital platforms. Create a brand voice guide documenting characteristics, do's and don'ts, and example phrases. 2, or next, train your team to ensure consistent implementation. Next, audit existing content and update it to align your brand voice. This is huge, especially if you're operating on YouTube, especially if you're operating on LinkedIn. These are platforms that adjusting your captions and copy, or even, tweaking it slightly, adding a call to action to an existing post, you'd be surprised how much of an impact this has. So if you have time, or if you could delegate this to someone on your team, I would suggest strongly to do a deep dive audit, maybe a 90 days backlog of your content. Go back and look at 90 days of your content and identify the posts that performed extremely well, and maybe go in and touch them up a little bit. Some of those posts that performed really bad, you might want to just save yourself the time and just leave it where it is. But if you have the bandwidth, you could also do a full-on audit of all of the content. After that, regularly review and adjust based on your audience feedback and results. You'd be so surprised. You'd be so surprised to see how many people will respond if you have an email list, for example, and you ask them a simple question. You could even put in the headline, or in the subject line, I should say, help, please open, or something like that, to kind of get them to look at their subject line and does Robin really need help? What's happening here? So that's something you don't want to neglect, that your audience is waiting to take action. Sometimes they just need that little bit of a nudge. They just need a nudge. Now, let's take a look at this flow chart, because this really, really sums everything up. It ties it up really nicely. So implementing your brand voice. First thing, you want to create your brand voice guide. Share the guide with your team. Train the team, which is really important. If you need help with that, you can reach out to me and I can support with that. Audit existing content. Update the content. Very important, especially on LinkedIn and on YouTube. Adjust for the platforms. Remember, what you do on TikTok might not work on LinkedIn. What you do on Instagram might not work on X. So make sure you're really mindful of the platform you're on and adjust the content accordingly. After adjusting for the platforms, review audience reception, make adjustments, and then repeat the cycle. Repeat the cycle. Okay, so I'm going to give you some homework. I'm going to give you some brand voice action items. First, Conduct a brand voice workshop with your team. If you need help with that, let me know. I can support. Create your brand voice guide. No problem. Gotcha. Next, audit and update your existing content. This is my favorite one. I love that, and I love doing it with clients. That sounded wrong. Anyway, schedule regular reviews of your brand voice implementation. Now I know what you're thinking. Robin, this is too much. It's too much. I can't do all of this. I don't have a team, whatever. This is what I want to do. I told you if you stick around to the end, I have something free for you, a free gift. What I'd like to do is gift you with an ebook that will summarize all of this content for you. It'll even give you a sneak peek into part 2 and possibly part 3 of this series. If you want access to that, all you have to do is visit landthetalk.com, absolutely free. You put in your email, it's gonna ask, you click on the web address, it'll ask for your email, you enter your email, and just like that, in your inbox, you will receive an email from me that has a link to a wide variety of free resources, including this ebook. Also, I'm gonna be sending out an email blast very soon to our community and share the link with them for this ebook. So I want to make sure you're getting value. So do me a favor. We have 6 episodes left. I can invite the guest that you want, or I can cover the topic that you're interested in hearing me cover. So let me know in the comments of a YouTube version of this episode. In the YouTube version of this episode, please, in the comments, let me know what you want these last 6 episodes to be about. Until the next time we meet, I'm Robin Nathaniel, and this is Land the Talk.